here's how we use Fabricate to generate realistic conversations. To get started, I've created a database called Customer Support and a table called Chats, and I'm going to create conversations that are between an airline customer and a customer support agent. And the topic is going to be about the airline customer's flight being canceled and how to get them rebooked. So in order to generate conversations, we use the conversation generator. The conversation generator works based on a prompt and two personas of the people that are having the conversation. So for the prompt, this is what I gave it. Generate a transcript of a phone conversation between an airline customer and a support agent about the airline canceling the customer's flight. You should model the speech patterns of people on a phone call, including pauses and half-finished sentences from the customer. Feel free to make up details about the reason for the customer's trip and why they need to be there. Since this is a phone conversation, both parties don't know each other's names until they ask. The agent should initiate the conversation and ask for the customer's name. The conversation should be in English, so we could use other languages as well. The customer wants to be rebooked. The outcome is, and here we use a variable that's going to come from a column called outcome in this same table. When rebooking a flight, the agent always gives the flight number, a random seat number, which is a number and a letter indicating the aisle, and a departure time. The customer may ask about compensation for the delay. Then for our customer persona, we have the customer's name is, and then again, we're going to use a variable for that. We'll also use variables for sex, age, and their tone. So the tone could be something like they are anxious or upset or patient and friendly. Let's see, they were booked on, and then we'll use a variable for airline, flight number, departure code, departure city, departure country, and the arrival code, arrival city, and arrival country, and the departure time. And then for the second persona, this is the agent. We just give them a name and then how they act. The agent is patient, efficient in their language, and thorough about details. Okay, so once we've configured all of these things, then we can generate a sample conversation just by clicking here. So here's our sample conversation. First, we just see the actual prompt that was generated, so we can check and see if there are any errors in the prompt or if the variables aren't being filled in like we thought they were. So here's the prompt that was sent to the AI, and then here's the actual conversation between agent and customer. So thank you for calling American Airlines. This is Slade. How may I assist you today? And then you can see it sort of models the speech patterns that you would have over the phone. So, hi, I just received a notification that my flight was canceled. I'm sorry to hear that. May I have your name, please? Yes, it's Caro Lahuda. I was supposed to fly from JFK to Atlanta. My flight number was AA6559. So checking reservation. Customer says, I really need to get there today. My daughter has a competition. I promised to be there. I understand how important this is for you. Here's the alternative flight. The customer says, okay, that's better than nothing, and asks about a meal, and so on, and then asks about some compensation, like a voucher, given a $50 travel voucher. Again, whether or not compensation should be given could be another variable in your prompt, driven by another column in the table. But ultimately, the flight's rebooked, and the customer says, no, that's everything. Thank you so much for your help. And then the agent closes the call. So if you like that conversation, just hit Apply Changes, and then that saves the prompt. And then basically for every row in the table, and I've said generate exactly 100 rows, it's going to generate a conversation. And the prompt is based on the columns in the table, those variables that we plugged in. Those are based on these things. So for example, customer name uses Fabricate's full name generator, so you get a realistic name. Sex, just female and male. The agent name just uses a first name generator, so we don't give the agent's last name. The departure code is the airport code, and then city and country. Those automatically line up with the airport code. Same with the arrival code, country and city. The airline and then the flight number is based on the airline, so AA for American Airlines, UA for United, etc. The customer's tone is just one of these three possibilities using the list generator. Again, we could put in as many possibilities as we want, and we could have as many other discrete variables as we want in that prompt. In this case, I just used a single tone variable. And then the customer's age, which is just a number with a uniform distribution between 20 and 70. The outcome is one of these three possible outcomes, which I just came up with, but we could have other outcomes. We could have more, we could have fewer. So the customer flight is rebooked. The flight's not rebooked. The airline will contact the customer within 24 hours, or just the customer drops from the conversation before the problem is resolved. And then lastly, the departure time. So you as the user come up with what variables you want to plug into the prompt, and then Fabricate just generates conversations for every row in your table. When it comes time to actually generate our full set of conversations, we can either do that by clicking Export Data here, and I'll do that. I'll create a smaller set just to speed this up. So let's do 10 conversations. I'll hit Export Data. And we could export the data as a SQLite database, CSV file, or JSON lines. In this case, I'll just do JSON lines because it's at least somewhat readable. And then I'll say, let's just export the chats table. Now it's generating our conversations. Now that it's done, I can download the data. We have 10 conversations. Here are all the variables that we generated. And then for the conversation itself, it has an array of messages, each with content, the name of the person speaking, the persona of that person, and the time that the message was sent. So it also models, realistically, the time it takes between messages, back and forth in the conversation. If we wanted to take those conversations and, let's say, put them in like Word documents, we can use the Fabricate API to do that. So what I've done is I wrote a little JavaScript client using the Fabricate JavaScript package, Fabricate tools/client, to generate data from our customer support table, download it as a SQLite database, and then create Word documents for each conversation in an output folder using the JavaScript docx library. So I'm going to run this just by running npm start. It's going to go generate our conversations. Okay, it's generated all the conversations, and now if we go and look at one of these, so here you can see the conversation exported as a Word document. And we have one file for each document. Now going back into Fabricate, let's say that we wanted to have our conversations be in French instead of English. We could do that simply by going to the prompt and changing the language here. So the conversation should be in French. Now, I don't know French, but hopefully some in the audience do. So I'm just going to regenerate my example conversation. And here's a conversation on the same topic with all the same parameters, but in French instead of English. To sum things up, we created a database, a chats table. We came up with all the parameters for the prompt that we would use to generate the conversation. Each of those parameters is a column. It uses some built-in generator like full name or flight airport departure code to generate the discrete data in that column. Then we fill out the prompt and the two personas using those variables. We generate a example conversation, season to taste, and then ultimately export as many of those conversations as we want, either as a file through the UI, or we could use the API to automate exporting that data and transforming it into other formats like Word.